They thought she'd built the duplex for them. They were wrong. Tesslin Ward's silence was never surrender, it was strategy. But when the calls stopped and the shadows returned, she realized control was only an illusion, and her family wasn't finished with her yet. The for rent sign was gone. Tesslin Ward noticed it first, though she didn't slow the car, her parents did. Her father's knuckles tightened on the steering wheel, his gaze fixed on the two SUVs parked neatly in the driveway. Porch lights glowed through drawn curtains. The place looked lived in. "Someone's here," her mother whispered. The words floated between them like fog, soft but heavy. Tesslin stood still on the curb, a paper cup of coffee warming her hands against the early evening chill. She had been expecting this moment, the way her parents' sedan would roll up the street, the way confusion would crease their faces when they realized what she'd done. She didn't tell them to come, but she knew they would. People always check the stage before they take the spotlight. It started with silence. Not shouting. Not questions. Just silence thick enough to taste. She had bought the duplex 3 months ago, quietly on purpose. 32, divorced, childless, and holding 2 degrees that somehow impressed everyone except her own family. It was supposed to be a small step toward independence, an investment in her own stability. She had convinced herself that owning property meant owning her life again. She was wrong. The first call came only 3 weeks after the closing. Her mother's voice, sweet and high-pitched, chimed through the speaker. "When are you moving in, sweetheart?" "I'm not," Tesslin said. "It's a rental property."
"Oh."
"Even better," her mother replied, voice bright but brittle. "Your brother and Marcy have been having a hard time with their lease. Maybe they could stay there for a while, just until they get back on their feet." The pause that followed wasn't confusion. It was a calculation. Tesslin could almost hear her brother and sister-in-law standing nearby, waiting for the answer they already assumed was theirs. Her mother continued, softer now. "Family helps family, right?" It wasn't a question. It never was. They didn't ask permission. They didn't need to. Not in their minds. They had taken her things before. Her old car when she went to college, her bedroom after grad school, her time, her holidays, her patience. Every sacrifice came wrapped in guilt and labeled as love. This time, Tesslin didn't argue. She smiled into the phone and said, "Of course. I'll get the place ready." They called it generosity. She called it leverage. The next morning she started with Unit 1. New paint. Sanded floors. A soft shade of sage for the kitchen cabinets. She took her time, deliberate, careful, like every brushstroke was an act of reclaiming. She listed it online, high-quality photos and all. Then she moved on to Unit 2. Her brother called midweek. "Mom said we're moving in this weekend." "The plumbing isn't finished yet," she replied calmly. He cursed under his breath. She didn't respond. That was Thursday. By Sunday, both units were listed. 12 applications poured in: nurses, teachers, young couples, people with references, credit, and gratitude. By the end of the month, Tesslin handed over the keys. A nurse named Isla took Unit 1, and a newlywed couple, the Myers, moved into Unit 2. Her duplex was alive now, the sound of real life echoing through walls she owned, not owed. Her parents called 3 times the next week. She didn't pick up. When the calls stopped, she knew they were planning something. It happened on a Tuesday evening. She saw the headlights first, the same silver sedan easing up to the curb, headlights off, as if sneaking up on a secret. Her father stepped out first, rigid, jaw clenched. Her mother followed, clutching her coat tighter around her frame. "Whose cars are those?" her father asked, scanning the driveway. Tesslin took a slow sip from her mug. "Tenants," she said simply. Her mother blinked rapidly, as if the word itself didn't make sense. "Tenants." "I rented both units," Tesslin said. "Market rate. 2-year leases." The silence that followed was heavy and unfamiliar, a rare moment when her parents didn't have a ready answer. Her mother's smile faltered. "We thought this was for us." Tesslin met her eyes. "You thought wrong." Her father's face darkened. "You never said anything." "Neither did you," Tesslin replied. "You planned to move people into a house you didn't buy without asking." For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes. Understanding. Maybe even guilt. Then he looked away. "But we're family," her mother said, her voice trembling now, as if the word itself could unlock the door. Tesslin exhaled slowly.
Exactly.
"Which is why I didn't have to evict you. I just never let you in." That night, the phone rang. Her brother's name glowed on the screen. She didn't answer. He left a voicemail instead. "You really screwed them over. Hope you're proud." She saved the message, forwarded it to her lawyer, not because she was afraid, but because she was done underestimating how low people would go when entitlement met denial. The next morning, she sent her parents a formal letter. No access, no visits without written notice, no assumptions. Then silence again, this time not from power, but from surrender. Weeks passed. Every first of the month, rent landed in her account on time. The duplex stood quietly under the amber hue of the streetlights, occupied by people who paid their dues and said thank you. Sometimes, Tesslin drove by on her way home, slowing just enough to watch the soft glow behind the windows, signs of lives she had chosen, not inherited. It wasn't a victory she felt. It was balanced. She had drawn a line. A quiet one. And in that stillness, something unexpected began to stir. Isla, the nurse in Unit 1, started leaving handwritten notes when dropping rent envelopes. Short, kind things like, "Thank you for fixing the porch light," or "The garden looks beautiful this week." Tesslin found herself replying once, a short thank you note of her own. Nothing more. But over time, the messages grew into small conversations that slipped through mail slots about work shifts, late-night coffee, and the strange peace of living alone after heartbreak. For the first time in years, Tesslin didn't dread the sound of a message notification. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something like hope, disguised as kindness. And though she didn't know it then, that quiet thread of connection would soon unravel the one thing she thought she'd finally secured: control. 3 months passed before the silence cracked again. It came one Sunday afternoon, a knock that wasn't expected but wasn't unwelcome either. Tesslin opened the door to find Isla standing there, damp hair tied back, wearing blue scrubs and a nervous smile. "Sorry to bother you," Isla said, brushing rain from her sleeves. "The sink in my unit's leaking again. I called a plumber, but I thought you'd want to know." Tesslin nodded. "Thank you for telling me. I'll take a look." It was nothing complicated, a loose fitting beneath the counter. But Isla stayed anyway, kneeling beside her to help, passing tools, laughing when they both ended up wet from a burst of water pressure. For the first time in years, Tesslin laughed too. When it was fixed, Isla leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her with something that wasn't quite gratitude, something warmer. "You're different from most landlords," she said softly. Tesslin raised an eyebrow. "Is that good or bad?" Isla smiled. "It's rare." That night, Tesslin sat by her window long after midnight, listening to the distant hum of Isla's record player through the shared wall, an old jazz tune drifting through drywall like a memory. It was the first time the house didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like home. But peace has a short lifespan in families that feed on control. The next morning, Tesslin's phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Ms. Ward." The voice was formal. "This is Detective Latham with the city police. I'm calling regarding a complaint filed by your parents." Her stomach tightened. "A complaint? They claim you've unlawfully rented property promised to them as a residence. They've provided a statement suggesting financial coercion." Tesslin's breath caught. "That's absurd. The property's legally mine. Fully paid." "I'm sure it is," Latham said, tone neutral. "We just need you to come in for a brief statement. Procedure." When she hung up, her hands trembled. Not from guilt, but from disbelief. Her parents had always used words as weapons, but now they'd sharpen them into something official. By the time she reached the precinct, her pulse had steadied. She told her story clearly: the purchase, the renovations, the leases. She handed over documents, dates, and the signed letter setting legal boundaries. The detective nodded through it all, unimpressed but thorough. When it was done, he leaned back. You're not in any trouble, Ms. Ward. It's a civil issue at best. But if I were you, I'd tread carefully. Families can be unpredictable when money's involved. She knew that better than anyone. That evening, she found a note slipped under her door. You okay?
Isla.
Just those two words, but Tesslin felt something shift again, that small tug of connection she'd tried to ignore. She wrote back, fine. Just family things. An hour later, another note arrived. Family things are the worst kind. It wasn't a pity. It was understanding. And somehow, that made it harder to ignore. Days turned to weeks. The police complaint dissolved into nothing. Her parents went quiet again, too quiet. Her brother stopped calling. But peace, Tesslin had learned, is often the prelude to the next storm. It arrived one evening in early spring, disguised as laughter. She was walking up the street when she saw her father's silver sedan parked by the curb. Light spilled from Isla's windows, two shadows moving inside. Her pulse stumbled. She reached the porch just as the door opened, and her mother stepped out, a polite smile masking something sharp. Isla followed, looking uneasy. Tess, Isla began, your parents stopped by. I thought maybe. They shouldn't be here, Tesslin interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. Her father appeared behind them. We just wanted to see the place. You've done well for yourself. His tone dripped with something between condescension and regret. You didn't need to get the police involved. Tesslin met his stare. You filed a report. He shrugged. Misunderstanding. Her mother's eyes darted toward Isla. We were just talking. She's lovely, by the way. Such a sweet tenant. The air thickened. Tesslin could feel what her mother was doing, charming, probing, planting seeds. It had always been her way. She stepped closer. You're trespassing. Her father's jaw tightened. Don't speak to your mother like that. Then don't come uninvited, Tesslin replied. For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then her mother smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides defeat. You've changed, Tess. I'm not sure it's for the better. I am, Tesslin said. When they finally left, Isla stood silently by the doorway. I didn't know, she said softly. They said you were expecting them. I wasn't, Tesslin replied. A long pause. Then Isla looked at her, searching her face. You don't have to keep everyone out, you know. Tesslin hesitated. Sometimes I do. The next week was quiet again, almost unnervingly so. Tesslin kept her distance, from her tenants, from her family, from anything that might stir the stillness she'd built. But the stillness cracked one last time. A letter arrived in her mailbox, unmarked, no return address. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a single photograph, the duplex, taken at night. Her own silhouette is visible through the upstairs window. Beneath it, in neat handwriting, control is an illusion. You taught us that. Her throat went dry. No signature, no clue. Just that message, haunting, deliberate. She looked toward the duplex across the street. Both units are dark, curtains drawn. She called Isla's number, no answer. For the first time, Tesslin felt something she hadn't in months. Not anger, not sadness. Fear. She walked outside, the night air cold against her skin, and glanced toward the shadows at the end of the street. Nothing, but she could feel eyes somewhere, watching. She went back inside, locked the door twice, and sat by the window with the lights off. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You really should answer when the family reaches out. Tesslin's pulse quickened. The message deleted itself seconds later. In the glass reflection, she caught her own face, calm, focused, unflinching. She wasn't the same woman who used to swallow guilt for peace. She wasn't the quiet daughter anymore. She turned off her phone, drew the blinds, and whispered to the dark. Let them watch. I'm done hiding. Outside, the streetlights flickered once, then steadied. The duplex stood silent again, but now, even Tesslin couldn't tell whether that silence meant victory or the beginning of something else.